to Mr. Gibbs. He'll swear you in and direct your testimony.
Mr. Duke, you swear the testimony you're going to give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please be seated.
Please be seated, sir.
If you would, please state your full name for the record and for the jury.
Ryan Alexander Duke.
Mr. Duke, did you murder Tara Grinstead?
I did not.
Did you break into her home on October 22nd or 23rd, 2005?
No, sir, I did not.
Have you ever been inside her home at any point in your life?
No, sir, I hadn't.
Did you ever have a sexual relationship with Miss Grinstead?
I did not.
Did you ever strike Miss Grinstead?
No, sir, I did not.
Did you ever choke Miss Grinstead?
No, sir, I've never choked anyone.
Have you ever been inside Miss Grinstead's car?
No, sir, I have not.
Did you ever take a pair of gloves or a glove to Miss Grinstead's home?
No, sir, I did not.
Did you see Miss Grinstead's body after she died?
I did.
Where did you see it?
In the pecan orchard.
Did somebody take you to the body?
They did.
Who took you to the body?
Bo Dukes.
Did Bo Dukes tell you that he killed Tara Grinstead?
He did.
Do you know how Miss Grinstead died?
I do not.
Were you asked to help dispose of her body?
I was.
Who asked you to do that?
Bo Dukes.
Did you help Bo Dukes move Miss Grinstead's body in the orchard?
I did.
Were you afraid that he'd hurt you or your family if you told anyone about it?
I was.
Is that why you didn't come forward prior to February of 2017?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to talk a little bit about your life leading up to October of 2005.
Yes, sir.
So, where were you born, Mr. Duke?
I was born in Green Hill County, Dormley Medical Center.
And what are your parents' names?
Karen O'Neill and Fred Duke.
And has your dad, since passed away?
He has.
Were your parents married, divorced?
They divorced when I was 2 or 3 years old.
Did you live with your mom or your dad growing up?
Let me ask both of you gentlemen, please, to speak up.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
Yeah.
Did you live with your mom or your dad when you were growing up?
I lived with my grandparents up until I was 12, 13. Then I lived with my mom. Then I split time between them and my dad.
And was that here in the area?
Yes, sir.
Did your mom, did she eventually get remarried?
Yes, sir.
And who'd she marry?
William O'Neill.
You mentioned that you lived with your dad. Where was that? Where'd you live with him at?
Greene County, Georgia, Greensboro.
Did you attend school up there at all?
I did. I attended middle school.
Did either of your parents have any substance abuse issues when you were growing up?
My mom did.
It goes to his state of mind, his general upbringing, just what his experiences were as a person growing up.
Which is irrelevant.
Let me ask you to rephrase that. I suspect.
Did anyone in your family drink while at home?
Yes, sir.
And who was that?
My mom.
Objection, Judge. Irrelevant. He's talking about things that occurred when he was younger. It's irrelevant.
How's that?
I'll move on. Where'd you go to high school, Mr. Duke?
I went to Irwin County High School.
Did you play sports in high school?
Objection, Judge. Relevance.
It's, again, just sort of filling out Mr. Duke's character. These are basic background questions, Your Honor.
I'll allow that.
I did some my senior year. I had worked as soon as I was able to work.
So did you have a job?
I did.
Where'd you work?
Harvey's, the local grocery store.
Here in Osilla?
Yes, sir.
Did you have a girlfriend at any point in high school?
I did.
And did you have a good group of friends?
Yes, sir, I did.
Who were some of those friends that you spent time with in high school here in Osilla?
Deion Smith, Kristen Daniels, Stephen Giddens, Robert Upton.
What about Bo Dukes? Was he a friend of yours in high school?
We didn't start hanging out till my senior year.
Tell me about Bo.
I don't have much good to say.
How would you, let me ask you this. Did Bo have a good reputation among your group of friends?
I don't think so.
What was his reputation among your group of friends?
He would cause scenes. He just show out just to kind of make anybody, to make a scene, to make other people uncomfortable.
Was he considered a trustworthy person?
No.
Did he ever say things that were weird or out of the ordinary, that maybe dark things?
Yes, he did.
Did he do that with some frequency?
Yes,
You know anything about Bo's family?
I do.
Is his family well known in the Osilla area?
Yes, sir. I think everybody knows him.
Did you know his grandpa?
I didn't personally.
Did you know anything significant about his grandpa?
Bo talked a lot about the things his.
Anything Bo said would be hearsay, Judge.
And I'll rephrase the question.
Thank you. Sustain that objection.
Were you aware of his grandpa's occupation?
Yes, he was a state senator for 20 plus years, I think.
Were you aware of any significant legislation or other political acts that he accomplished during his tenure?
He got funding to start the GBI. He got funding for the tech school and other works in the counties.
What year did you graduate high school?
2002.
Did you go to college after high school?
I spent a year ABAC.
And how did you do in college at ABAC?
Not great.
How'd you do your first semester?
I did okay the first semester. The second, I just wavered.
Is there anything particular that I guess impacted you when you were at ABAC? Anything?
Well, I'd rather party and go out and do my schoolwork.
So you said you stayed in college for about a year. How'd you end your time in college?
I withdrew.
And was that a voluntary decision?
It was.
And so if you stayed there about a year, I guess, did you leave ABAC in about spring, summer 2003?
Yes, sir.
Where did you live when you were in college at ABAC?
I stayed at home.
With, who did you live with?
It was my parents, or my mom and my stepdad.
And where did you live? What part? Was it in Osilla, Tifton?
It was in Pleasure Lake, in the rural county, Irwin County.
Once you withdrew from college, where'd you work? What'd you do?
I got a job at Stewart Finance. It's a small loan company. They had offices all over the state.
And what office did you work out of?
The Valdosta office.
And what job did you have at Stewart Finance?
It was debt collection.
Did you start that job, I guess, was it shortly after you left ABAC?
Yes, sir.
So it was probably about the summer, June, July of 2003?
Yes, sir. That'd be about right.
And did you enjoy that job?
No, sir, not particularly.
Why didn't you like that job?
Well, it's hard to collect debt. Anybody that's ever had to done it, you have to. Sometimes you have to repossess people's property.
How'd you feel about doing that?
I wasn't very good at it. I didn't enjoy it.
Did you feel sorry for some of the people you had to repossess things from?
Judge, how could this possibly be relevant?
It's, again, just building character, Your Honor, talking about his general character.
I sustain that.
Okay. When you were working at Stewart Finance, where did you live?
When I started, I was commuting back and forth. I was still at home. Then I moved to Valdosta.
And when you moved to Valdosta, did you have any roommates?
I did.
And who were those roommates?
Hank McMahon and Bo Dukes.
And did you guys party a lot when you were living in Valdosta?
Yes, sir.
Did you guys drink?
Yes, sir. They both were either in school, or no, Hank was in school, and that's all Bo did was,
Did anyone do any drugs?
Yes, sir.
What drugs did folks do?
It was marijuana and cocaine.
And when your job at Stewart Finance, was that a full-time or part-time job?
It was full-time.
How long did you work at Stewart Finance? When did you stop working there?
It was about a year, about that next summer.
So this would have been about summer 2004?
Yes, sir.
And what did you do after you ended your job at Stewart Finance?
That's when I went into the Army.
And when did you join the Army? Was that in the summer, fall of 2004?
It was, I think I went and signed up in the summer, and I started in the fall of that year of 04.
Were you dating anyone at the time that you started, well, when you joined the Army?
Yes, sir, I was.
Who was that?
It was Lindsay Ross McMahon.
Were you dating her while you were in basic training in the Army?
Yes, sir.
Did you communicate with each other during basic training?
Yes, sir. Phone calls when you got a break and letters mostly.
Why did you join the Army?
I thought it'd be good for me to be part of something bigger than myself. You know, I thought that would kind of give me direction.
When you joined the Army, did you have the opportunity to pick a job?
Yes, sir. You pick your job before you go into basic.
And what job did you pick?
I picked the one with the biggest bonus, the infantry.
And you say biggest bonus, I guess there was was it like a signing bonus?
Yes, sir.
How did basic training go for you?
The physical aspect, I've always enjoyed that. Other than that, I had a hard time.
What part about it did you struggle with any part of it?
Yes, sir. It was the mental aspect of it, the readiness to use violence.
How did you feel about the violence that came with the job once you're in basic training?
I wasn't sure I was capable of violence.
Did you have any veterans as your instructors while you were in basic training?
We did, and we had, you do course training, and a lot of the course trainers had just come back from deployment.
And did they tell any stories about when they were serving?
Yes, sir, they did.
And did any of those stories impact you in any way?
They did.
And how did those stories impact you?
It made me think I wasn't capable, or I wouldn't be able to do what was necessary.
Did you think you'd be able to kill somebody if it came down to it?
No, sir.
Did you ever hunt growing up?
No, sir, I did not.
Did you ever own a gun?
No, sir.
To this day, have you ever killed an animal yourself?
No, sir.
So did you make it through basic training?
I did.
Was there a graduation ceremony?
There was, yes, sir.
And did your girlfriend, Lindsay, did she come to the graduation?
Yes, sir. She came with my mom and my stepdad.
Did you get a break or anything like that after the graduation?
Yes, sir. It was right at Christmas and New Year's, so we got a 2-week break before I'd signed up for additional training. So I would go back, report back in January.
And did you see any friends over the break, 2004?
I did.
Where did you see those friends at?
Bo invited me to a party out at the orchard.
And is this the same orchard that we talked about earlier that's been talked about in this case?
Yes, sir, it is.
Did anything out of the ordinary happen at that party?
Yes, sir. I had asked Bo if Hank was going to be there because that was Lindsay's ex-boyfriend at the time. I didn't want to cause a scene. You know, I wanted everybody to have a good time.
And what did Bo tell you?
He told me he wouldn't be there, or he didn't invite him.
When you got to the party, was Hank there?
He wasn't there when I arrived, but it was right after I got there. He came.
And what happened when he got there? Did anything happen?
Yeah, he pulled me aside and confronted me about Lindsay.
And what happened during that confrontation?
Well, I told him I was sorry about how things had happened. I didn't do anything to try to hurt him. I told him if he felt like he needed to swing, that was okay. You know, I wouldn't retaliate.
And did he hit you or anything like that?
He did not.
And once you finished this break at Christmas 2004, did you return to the Army?
Yes, sir, I did.
And what did you do? Did you have any more training when you got back? Or?
Yes, sir. After reporting back, I reported for jump school.
And this was your airborne training?
Yes, sir.
Did you make it through that training?
I did not.
What happened? Why didn't you finish that training?
There was a girl in the unit before me that had jumped out of a plane and her chute didn't open, and she panicked and didn't open her reserve. She's an 18-year-old girl, died.
How did that impact you?
It shook me up real bad.
Did you stay in airborne school after that incident?
Yes, sir, for about a week. Well, no, sir, I asked to be taken out of training, and I told them I needed to talk to somebody. I didn't feel like I could do that anymore, that I either needed retraining or something. I needed to talk to somebody.
And what happened once you told them that you wanted out of airborne school? What happened?
They put me on a holding pattern where you're basically just waiting for another assignment.
And where were you at when this occurred?
This is at Fort Benning in Columbus.
And so they place you in what you call sort of a holding pattern. How long did you stay at Fort Benning in this holding pattern?
It was 4 or 5 days, and then that's when I left, and I went AWOL.
And you said you went AWOL. How did you leave Fort Benning?
I walked in my car, got in it, and drove and left.
No one tried to stop you or anything?
No, sir.
Where did you go once you left Fort Benning?
I went to Augusta, where my dad and my brother were living.
And once you got there with your dad and your brother, how long did you stay in Augusta?
It wasn't long, less than a month before they moved back here.
Once they left Augusta, where did they move in particular? Was it Osilla?
In Fitzgerald, across from the hospital.
And is that the trailer that we've heard about in this case, the trailer?
Yes,
across?
sir, it is.
And when they moved into the trailer, did you follow them as you moved with them into the trailer?
Yes, sir, I did.
And during this particular time period, you considered yourself AWOL from the military?
Yes, sir, I was.
Were you working at all during this time period?
I did odd jobs, mowing the grass. I did some roofing with my uncle, whatever, so I could contribute, pay bills.
During this time period, did you forge any checks?
I did. I took some checks from my brother. It was 3 checks.
Okay. How many, so you said 3 checks. How much money was each one of those checks for?
Around $50.
And you forged those checks. Did you cash those checks?
I did.
And did that cause your brother's account to overdraft?
It did.
Did you ever pay any of that money back to your brother?
I did.
Did you pay the overdraft fees and the initial amounts of the checks?
I did.
So you were AWOL from the Army. Did you eventually follow up with the Army, or did they contact you?
I called and I was told to report to Fort Sill and report myself AWOL.
And where is Fort Sill?
It's in Oklahoma.
And did you comply with that? Did you go, in fact, to Fort Sill, Oklahoma?
Yes, sir, I did. I took a Greyhound.
And what happened to you at Fort Sill?
I was arrested.
And did they put you in jail?
It was, yes, sir, but it wasn't lockup type. I was placed under guard, but it wasn't jail type placement. It was just so they was worried, I guess, that people would run. I'm not sure, but I was placed in another holding pattern to be out processed while I was doing my brig time.
How long did you stay at Fort Sill?
It was 2 or 3 weeks.
And were you eventually discharged from the Army?
Yes, sir, I was.
And what type of discharge did you receive?
It was other than honorable.
Did you have the ability to appeal that decision?
Yes, sir. They told me after 6 months I could appeal and receive a general discharge.
Did you ever, in fact, appeal the discharge?
No, sir. I felt I got the discharge I deserved.
When did you officially leave the Army?
It was in August 2005.
Where did you go after you left Fort Sill? After you were discharged from the Army, where'd you go?
I came back to Fitzgerald.
And who did you live with?
My dad and my brother.
Were they still living in the trailer across from the hospital?
Yes, sir.
When you moved back in with your dad and your brother in the trailer, did you work?
Yes, sir. I got a job at MDI in Fitzgerald.
Once you were back living in the trailer with your dad and brother, did you start hanging out with Bo Dukes at all?
Not much. My dad hated Bo. Stephen wasn't very fond of him, so he wouldn't come around. He'd come by and pick me up. We'd hang out sometimes.
When your dad was living in the trailer, did Bo ever stay the night that you recall?
No, sir.
And approximately when did you start working at MDI in Fitzgerald?
It had been September of that year. Of
2005?
Yes, sir.
What was your job at MDI?
I worked in blending.
And explain just briefly what kind of job that was.
You take a raw material, sometimes it's like chopped up wine corks, and you mix it with a sand-based petroleum and make plastic pellets. And they use those pellets to make molds for cell phones, for laptops, that type of stuff.
Did you get any promotions while you were at MDI?
Yes, sir. I was promoted to blending foreman.
Did you supervise any other employees?
I did, yes, sir.
What was your typical schedule when you were at MDI?
It's mostly 12-hour shifts from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., 5 days a week.
Was it Monday through Friday?
Yes, sir.
What did you think about that job? Did you like your job at MDI?
I did.
And while you were working at MDI, did you continue living with your dad and your brother?
My dad moved some point in this time frame. I'm not sure the exact date. He moved to Eufaula, Alabama.
Once your dad moved out, did you still hang out with Bo some?
Yeah, it increased how much he'd come by.
How often would you say you were seeing Bo during this time period?
It started out just the weekends, then he just kind of progressively moved in.
Did he start staying the night at your trailer?
Yes, sir.
How often would you say that he slept over? Did you say it became ultimately every night he was staying over?
Yes, sir. It started as we'd hang out, be drinking or whatever, and he'd stay the night till, he just kind of never left.
Did Bo pay any rent?
He did not.
Did he pay any utilities?
No, sir.
Did Bo ever buy groceries for the trailer?
No, sir.
Did Bo have a job that you're aware of?
No, sir.
Did Bo ever have any money?
No.
How many bedrooms did this trailer have?
2.
And was this a single wide or double wide trailer?
It was a single.
It was a pretty small trailer.
Yes, sir.
Did your brother have a room in the trailer?
He did.
Did Bo have a room in the trailer?
He did.
Did you have a room in the trailer?
I slept on the couch mostly.
Why did Bo have a room, although he paid no bills, no rent, no utilities? Why did he have a room but you were sleeping on the sofa?
It's just where I slept.
Did you feel like Bo was using you during this time period?
Yes, sir, I did.
Did Bo ever leave out any kind of reading materials in the trailer?
He did. He'd leave pornographic material out, and I had to repeatedly ask him not to do that.
Were these materials of a particular nature?
I found them offensive. It was bondage. I don't know how to put it.
Did the magazines that you saw, did they depict violent sex acts?
Yes, sir.
How did you feel when you saw those magazines?
It was gross, offensive.
Did you ask Bo to stop leaving the magazines out?
I did.
During this time period while you're working at MDI, how much money were you bringing home every week on average?
It was anywhere between $500 and $600 a week.
And so you had plenty of money during this time period.
Yes, sir.
Objection laid down.
Did you have enough?
Disrespect, yeah.
Did you have what you would have considered enough money to meet all your needs at this time?
Yes, sir.
Did Bo steal from you during this time period?
He did.
What did he steal from you?
Anything that was left out, you know, you learn not to leave anything out you didn't want gone.
Did you ever accuse him of stealing?
It didn't have to be. You know, it was me and my brother and him. You know, he's the only one that would have stole.
At this point, were you buying food for him to eat?
Yes, sir. I was buying food for the whole house.
Were you putting gas in Bo's truck?
I was.
You were paying the rent,
Yes, sir.
utilities?
Yes, sir.
Were you basically fully supporting Bo financially at this point?
Yes, sir. He told me his family wouldn't help him, that they didn't want nothing to do with him.
Did you at least sometimes get to use Bo's truck?
The reason I put gas in his truck so he could take me to work. I didn't have a vehicle at the time.
I want to talk now about Saturday, October 22nd, 2005. Do you remember that day, Mr. Duke?
Yes, sir, I do.
Did you work the Friday night before?
Yes, sir, I did.
And that was your typical schedule, the Monday through Friday?
Yes, sir. I'd have got off work about 7:30. I might have got home around 8:30 that morning.
And, excuse me, where did you sleep when you got home?
I'd been the couch.
What time did you wake up on Saturday morning?
It was late afternoon, 5, maybe 6 o'clock. I kept a normal schedule, you know, to just kind of, so I wouldn't have to flip back and forth from day and night.
And at this point in your life, did you ever drink alcohol?
Yes, sir.
How often? How much did you drink and how often did you drink?
It was usually just on the weekends, you know, to kind of just wind down, you know.
Drinking, hanging out with friends?
Yes, sir.
Did you smoke pot at all during this time period?
Yes, sir, I did.
How often would you say that you were smoking pot during this time period?
That was probably every day.
How much pot would you smoke on just an average day?
Maybe a joint or two.
Did you have to have drugs or alcohol to function at this point in your life?
No, sir, I didn't.
Were you addicted to drugs or alcohol at this point?
No, sir, I was not.
You woke up around 5 to 6 p.m. Saturday evening. Who was at your house when you woke up?
It was my brother, Stephen Duke, Bo Dukes, and Ben McMahon.
What were they doing when you woke up?
I think they had started drinking. They was all kind of having a little get-together. They was football on the TV, you know.
What were they drinking?
Tequila.
Did you like tequila?
No, sir, I do not.
How does tequila affect you personally?
Usually makes me sick.
Would you have ever driven after drinking tequila?
No, sir.
Did you, and I think you mentioned this, but did you have a car at this time?
No, sir, I did not.
Did you have a cell phone?
No, sir.
Did you have any credit cards?
No, sir.
Did you even have a bank account?
No, sir.
So you recall that, did you drink tequila with the rest of them?
I did. They kind of, you know, come on, let's take some shots. You know, it's the first time I'd seen Ben in a long time.
Did you also drink some beer while you're drinking tequila?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall anybody else coming over to the trailer that evening?
No, sir.
How'd you handle the tequila and the beer that night?
I got sick.
Did you throw up?
Yes, sir.
What is the last thing that you remember happening on Saturday, October 22nd, 2005?
I just remember us taking tequila shots, and the next thing I know, I'm out.
Do you know approximately what time that night that you passed out?
It'd been 9, 10 o'clock.
Where did you pass out at, if you remember?
In the bathroom, hugging the toilet.
Do you remember anything else whatsoever about the night of Saturday, October 22nd, 2005 that you haven't already told the jury?
No, sir, I do not.
Well, let's talk about the next day, Sunday, October 23rd, 2005.
Yes, sir.
Do you have a clear memory of waking up that morning?
I was woke up. Bo woke me up.
Where were you when Bo woke you up?
I was still in the bathroom.
What were you doing in the bathroom?
I was asleep on the floor.
Do you know what time of day it was?
It was maybe 8:30 in the morning. It was daylight.
So you could see the sunlight from where you were?
Yes, sir.
Bo, you said, woke you up. What did he look like? When you opened your eyes and saw Bo, what do you recall? How did he look?
He looked panicked, freaked out. You know, he was pale, which is, you know, he was already pale. And
how did his eyes look?
he looked like he'd been up all night.
Were his eyes bloodshot?
Bloodshot, they were sunken.
So did he look different than he normally did?
Yes, sir, he did.
You mentioned he was panicked. I guess, how would you describe just his overall demeanor when he woke you up?
He was upset, shaking almost, just, you know, you could tell something was wrong.
What was he wearing when he woke you up?
Blue jeans, a t-shirt, maybe a sweater.
What did he say to you when he woke you up?
Objection. Your son.
And, Your Honor, this next statement is a statement against interest. And it is, I guess, if you want to go through the analysis. So the declarant's unavailable. Bo is unavailable to testify. We know that he's going to take his Fifth Amendment against the this particular
We're having
statement.
a speaking objection now, which is what defense counsel had asked us not to do, so I'd ask that we discuss it at the bench.
I'm going to sustain that objection at this point.
Thank you.
Bo woke you up, and what happened next?
He woke me up. It's hard to explain without saying what he said, but he said something that freaked me out, and then he went into the living room.
And what was your initial reaction to what it was he said to you?
I disbelieved him. You know, Bo didn't have he'd say shit just to kind of push your buttons or, you know, try to make you uncomfortable.
And what was your reaction? Did you say anything to Bo?
I didn't believe him. I asked him what he said or who he was talking about.
And what, Your Honor, I think, can we approach for a moment?
Sure. Get some fresh air, line up and go. The rest of you, please have a seat in the jury room. You can be seated. Thanks. All right, let's put all this on the record. Make sure we're clear. Start over, please, Mr. Gibb.
Yes, sir.
And
So-
hang on a second. Mr. Jackson, make sure when the jury comes back up that they remain in the grand jury room until we get ready to start back. Thank you. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So, Your Honor, in response to the initial question that I asked Mr. Duke was,
What did he say?
What did Bo say when he woke you up? So
All right.
the statement that Bo said to him was, and the quote is, "I killed Tara."
Is that
And-
right, Mr. Duke? Is that what your testimony would be?
Yes, sir.
All right, go ahead.
And so he says that, and so our position is that number one, I think the clearest issue here is that it's subject to hearsay exception. It's a statement against interest, and that there are three elements for it to be considered a statement against interest. First, the declarant is unavailable, and Mr. Dukes, through his attorney, has indicated that at least with respect to those types of substantive questions, that he intends to plead the Fifth Amendment, and so. Under 804A, he is unavailable for purposes of the hearsay rules. The second element is that the statement subjects the declarant to criminal liability. So I think saying that I killed Tara certainly implicates criminal liability. The third element is that the statement is corroborated by circumstances indicating its trustworthiness.
All
So
right, what about that one?
there are two bases here. The first of which, Mr. Duke testified very early, when I first started asking questions, whether Bo Dukes took him to the orchard. And so Mr. Dukes will testify shortly, in just a few minutes, that right after this, Bo Dukes, in fact, took him to the orchard and showed him Tara Grinstead's body. And so that is the first piece that corroborates the statement. He is confirming the fact that what he said was true through his actions, through showing him the body of Tara Grinstead. That confirms, that corroborates the statement that he made that I killed Tara. Second, and this comes from the 11th Circuit case from 2009, U.S. versus U.S. Infrastructure Incorporated. That's 576 F. 3rd 1195. And that court, the 11th Circuit, held that courts have found that self-inculpatory statements are sufficiently corroborated where the evidence presented at trial supports the veracity of the out-of-court statement, where the declarant makes the statement to someone with whom he shares a close relationship. And as we've established through Mr. Duke's testimony up to this point, he was in a close, friendly relationship with Bo Dukes. Bo Dukes was, in fact, living in his home. And so for those two reasons, the fact that he thereafter showed the body and also had a close relationship.
Of course, your evidence has been, not only from this witness, but others, that he's totally untrustworthy. I mean, that was one of the last statements he made.
That's
he
right.
says stuff all the time. So
That's right, Your Honor.
Doesn't that cut against what you're saying?
Well, no, Your Honor, because, excuse me, it does not, because at the time that he makes this statement, he is, I mean, it's sort of it's an excited statement. You know, he's not thinking this through. He comes home, he sees Ryan, he sort of blurts this out. He's clearly upset, he's distraught, and so for that reason, it satisfies the statement against interest exception. Now, I have other ones as well, other exceptions, but I don't know if you want to...
Let me hear from you, the state. We got it. And I'll give you the last thing. Go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
Specifically as it relates to that third element of a statement against interest, that isn't here. I think defense counsel's on argument yesterday was that a statement can't corroborate itself. That's exactly what they're trying to do. Is they're trying to use this defendant's statement, who obviously there's bias, to corroborate another portion of the statement. And so we would argue that
I
third
ruled
element.
against that argument yesterday already. Listen, this has all got to be sorted out. I'm on allow it, and it needs to be. We'll see what happens when Mr. Dukes gets here, if he's called to testify. But I'm going to allow him to answer that last question and describe the events that happened after that.
Yes, Your Honor. And I will tell you there will be some other similar questions I anticipate. So after this statement is made, they're in the bathroom together. They move from the bathroom to the living area.
If it all implicates himself in this death and disappearance, I'll admit it.
And it is. The statements are, they're, I think they fall under that. They are statements that are talking directly about this.
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify. because Your Honor has already made some rulings related to the Houston County stuff because of the fact that there's no statements from Bo that have been brought in.
That's why motion and limines are tough.
I just want to make sure.
Things change, that's right. So those will have to be revisited, of course, depending on whatever other evidence comes in the record at the time Mr. Dukes may be presented, or the time for this cross-examination.
Okay. So I guess what I wanted to clarify is if on cross-examination I ask questions of the defendant about these allegations he's now making for the first time, I don't want to be the one that's claimed now to open the door to the Houston County things. They're the ones that are putting in both statements, not us. And so I just want to make sure I'm still going to be allowed to ask questions without that door being opened, assuming I only ask about what comes out during direct.
Sure. That's got to have some competent evidence to come in, that stuff from Houston County that I have not heard. So don't you ask him about that.
No, I'm not intending to ask any of those questions.
No, I'm not going to ask about Houston County. I just, again, the whole point is they're now introducing statements of Bo, and then they're going to claim that because I cross-examined him, that that's opened the door to Houston County stuff later.
No,
so
it doesn't open the door. All right, we'll be in recess about 5 or 10 minutes for bathroom break. You can step down, Mr. Duke. Thank y'all. All right. Let's round up everybody, please. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll come to order and get ready to start back. Thank y'all. All right, everybody's in here, right? 18, everybody's in there? All right. You can come on back to stand, Mr. Duke. Thank you. All right, go ahead and be seated. You need any water or anything? You all right? Okay. Ms. Hart, you need to wait on your co-counsel? Or?
We're good, Judge, and go.
All right. Ask the jury to join. Please be seated. All right, we're getting back to it. Mr. Gibbs, you can circle back around to those previous questions since our bench comes. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. All right, I'm going to go back just a little bit. You testified earlier that the morning of Sunday, October 23rd, you woke up in the bathroom at your trailer.
Yes, sir.
And you testified Bo Dukes woke you up.
I have a little bit of objection. I think he's just recalling the prior testimony, but just be mindful of that.
Certainly.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbs.
Yes, sir. He woke me up that morning.
What did Bo Dukes say to you when he woke you up that morning?
He said he killed Tara.
And what was your first reaction?
I didn't know who he was talking about or what he was talking about. I was waking up after being drunk, being sick.
And what did you do after, or what did Bo Dukes do after he made the statement?
He left the bathroom and went to the living room or kitchen.
I believe I left my notes up there.
Good. Henry?
No, there. Here we go. Here we go, Your Honor. We're good.
Thank you.
And so what was your initial reaction when he said, I killed Tara?
I didn't know who he was talking about or what he was talking about.
And what did you say? What was your response?
It was that, just,
Were you confused?
yes.
And what did you say to him?
I asked him what he was talking about. I asked him who he was talking about.
And what did Bo respond to that question?
Yes, he said he killed Tara Grinstead.
And what happens next? Makes a statement. What happens next?
That's when he leaves the bathroom, or he says he needs to talk.
And where did he go from the living room?
From the living room,
From the bathroom.
he left the bathroom and went to the living room. And when I come out the bathroom, he was smoking a cigarette.
And were you alarmed at this point?
Yes and no. I mean, it's Bo, so it's hard to.
Did he make off-color jokes like this?
Yes, sir, all the time.
And did you get a cigarette, get a drink, anything like that?
Yes, sir, I probably grabbed a soda and smoked a cigarette, you know.
And what did you say to Bo once you got in the living room?
I asked him what's he talking about, what's going on.
How did Bo respond?
He made the statement that he killed Tara again.
And at this point, what was your response? Did you ask him any questions about it?
I told him I didn't believe him, you know.
Did he do or say anything in response to that?
He got out a wallet that had the driver's license in it.
Did he have, when he got the wallet, excuse me, you say he got the wallet out?
It was there was a purse sitting on the table.
And do you remember anything specifically about the purse or the wallet?
Yes, sir. I remember I could see the driver's license through the sleeve of the wallet.
And whose driver's license did that appear to be?
It was Miss Grinstead's.
Did you know Miss Grinstead from high school?
Yes, sir.
Did you know she was a teacher?
Yes, sir. I had passed her in the hall. You know.
Did you ever have any classes with her?
No, sir. I did not.
At this point, you see the driver's license of Miss Grinstead and the wallet you're holding. Were you alarmed at this point?
No, I had assumed he just stole the pocketbook or purse from somewhere.
And did you say anything to him in response once you had the purse, or saw the purse and had the wallet?
Yeah, I still didn't believe he had committed a murder.
Did you tell him that?
Yes, sir, I did.
At this point, what does Bo Dukes do?
He gets up and goes to his bedroom.
Did he say anything else, or just get up and go out
He
of the room?
just gets up and walks out.
And what did you do next? What was your action or words in response?
I was just kind of didn't know what to do. You know, I was just kind of stuck there for a few minutes.
Did you ultimately decide to take some kind of action?
I did. I was going to return her purse. I'd say I assumed he had just stole it.
And when you say return her purse, how did you intend to return her purse? Or did you have a plan?
I didn't have a plan. I didn't know where Miss Grinstead lived. I don't know exactly my train of thought. I was just going to return the wallet, you know, and pocketbook.
Did you decide that you would drive somewhere, that you would take the purse somewhere?
Yes, sir. I was going to try to return her purse. So I went to the bedroom, asked Bo if I could borrow the keys. He didn't answer me, so I grabbed his keys and got in the truck.
Where were the keys at when you got them?
They were laying on the floor.
And was it common for you to use this truck around this time period?
It was. I'd always ask him. You know, he didn't care. Usually I'd ask for a ride, but he wouldn't, you know, want to get up or help me or, you know.
Did you, when you got the keys from Bo, did you tell him where you were planning to go?
I did not.
What was Bo doing when you went in the bedroom and you got the keys? What was Bo doing?
He was laying down facing the wall. I assumed he was asleep, but I don't think he was.
Was he laying on a bed in there?
Yes, sir.
And at this point, did you know where Tara Grinstead lived?
I did not.
So you get Bo's keys to the truck. What do you do next?
I drive towards Osilla.
And the trailer you lived in, it was across the road from the hospital?
Yes, sir. It had been Votech Road.
So you took Votech Road from Fitzgerald to Osilla?
Yes, sir, I did.
And about what time of day was this when you drove from Fitzgerald to Osilla?
Been about 9 o'clock in the morning.
And so where were you driving? You didn't know where Miss Grinstead lived, so where were you driving?
I knew it was in the area. I had been to Mr. Boykin's house. I knew it was around the corner or down the street, something like that.
And Mr. Boykin, who is that?
He was a teacher at the school. He had a daughter. I was around my age too, maybe a little bit younger.
And you'd been over to their house previously?
Yes, sir.
And you recall the general vicinity where they lived?
I thought so at the time.
So you're driving from Osilla, from Fitzgerald to Osilla. Where do you, I guess when you come to Votech Road, where do you go next?
Go all the way to the stop sign and take a left.
Is that on 319?
Yes, sir, on 319 to go up to the red light.
And you come to the red light at the intersection of 319 and Highway 129 or Irwin Avenue?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to object to leading and ask him to not lead the defendant in this case.
Please, that's the statement. Yes, let him answer. Thank you.
Where did you said you turned left off of Votech Road?
Yes, sir, I turned left on 319, go towards the red light. And at the red light, I hung a right by Peck's.
And what did you do after that?
That's when I saw the store. I thought I could just make a phone call, you know.
And excuse me, what was the name of that store, if you recall?
It was the Swaney Swifty, I think, at the time, or Swifty Mart, or something like that.
And you saw the store. You stopped at the store. And what was the purpose of that?
To try to call or get in contact with Miss Grinstead to make sure she was all right or return her purse.
Did you know Miss Grinstead's phone number?
I did not.
Had you ever spoken to her by phone at any point in your life?
No, sir, I did not.
You stop at the Swaney Swifty store, and did you use the payphone?
Yes, sir, I did.
And excuse me, about what time was it when you used the payphone?
It was around 9:30.
And did you try to call Miss Grinstead?
No, sir, I didn't have the number. I called 411 to get the phone number.
When you called 411, did you place a separate call, or were you connected automatically to her house?
It connected, it started ringing, so it connected.
Did anybody answer?
No, sir.
Did you get the answering machine?
No, sir, it said the call was not answered or disconnected.
At this point, how are you feeling? You've called her house, no answer. How are you feeling?
I wasn't, you know, I didn't think what happened had happened. You know, I was still kind of.
At this point, did you believe that Bo had killed Tara Grinstead?
No.
What did you do next after you make the phone call?
I thought I knew the area around where Miss Grinstead lived, so I rode around a couple blocks, and I knew her car. I think most people would have recognized the little white sports car. And like I said, I rode by a couple houses or a couple blocks and didn't see the car, and that's when I went back to Fitzgerald.
How long did you drive around the area where you thought her house might be?
Maybe 5 minutes. It's not a big area.
And after you drive around, you don't see her car, what do you do next?
I go back to Fitzgerald.
And where do you go in Fitzgerald?
I go back home.
Go back to the trailer across
Yes,
from the
sir.
hospital?
Yes, sir.
When you got back to your house, was Bo at home?
Yes, sir. He was still in his room.
Did you go into the bedroom and look at him, talk to him?
Yes, sir. I went in there and I grabbed his leg, shook him. He wasn't asleep. I asked him what he was talking about, tell me what's going on. And he told me he'd show me.
He says he'll show you. What does he do next?
That's when he gets dressed, comes out, tells me to come on. And we get in the truck.
While you're in the trailer, before you go and get in the truck, is there any other conversation between the two of you?
No, sir, not, which was odd.
Did Bo talk a lot?
He did, but not that day.
How was, at this point, you've come back to the trailer. He's up. You're about to get in the truck. What's his demeanor like at this point?
He's still, you can tell something's wrong. You still don't know what, but something's off.
Did you get in the truck with Bo?
I did.
And who was driving the truck?
Bo was driving.
And the two of you, did you leave the trailer, go for a ride?
Yes, sir.
Where did you go?
He started driving towards Rochelle, Abbeville, towards the orchard.
And that's outside of Fitzgerald?
Yes, sir.
You're driving, are you smoking cigarettes, anything like that on the drive?
Yes, sir. Just usually you got the radio on, the windows down, so both of us are smoking.
During this drive, the time you're in the truck driving from the trailer to the orchard, is there any conversation between you and Bo?
No, sir. He doesn't say anything.
Did you ask him any questions?
I don't think I did, but I don't recall 100%.
What are your emotions during this drive while you're en route to the orchard?
I'm getting more and more worried. I can tell something's wrong, but I still think Bo's screwing with me. He did that a lot.
Where did Bo ultimately take you on this drive? Where did you end the drive?
It was, he turned into the orchard, the Hudson Farms.
And is this the orchard? You mentioned earlier back in 2004 you had attended a party at an orchard. Was this the same orchard?
Yes, sir.
And so you recognized it did you recognize it when you pulled up?
I knew it was that area. Back then I couldn't have pointed it out. I mean,
What does it look like when you're pulling into the orchard? What does it look like? What do you see?
It's kind of a little wooded, beaten path. It just looks like a trail back in the woods.
So there's not like a paved road or like even like a formal dirt road?
No, sir. There was, unless you knew where that road was at, you'd have missed it.
Are there any, was there a gate or anything like that you had to open to get into the orchard?
No, sir, not that I remember.
At this point in your life, do you know how many times you'd been to the orchard previously?
2 or 3.
And were all those occasions for parties that Bo had hosted?
Yes, sir.
What's the weather like this day? When you get to the orchard, what's the weather like? What does it look like outside?
It was a nice fall day. It was a lot like today. It was just cooler.
Was it sunny outside?
Yes, sir.
You pull off the road onto the path at the orchard. What happens next?
We drive down the trail. It goes all the way to the end of the trail to the back of the orchard, and it kind of corners. You have to turn left. And he drove down a little further, and there was a clearing off the passenger side, and he stopped.
When Bo stops the truck, does he say anything to you?
Yes, he said, "She's over there."
Does he motion or gesture anywhere?
I don't think so. He said that as he was getting out of the truck.
And so he got out of the truck.
Yes, sir.
And did you follow him? Did you get out of the truck as well?
I got out. I didn't sure he made a kind of like a beeline to where he was going and into the clearing.
Did he seem hesitant?
No, sir.
At this point, how are you feeling at this point? When you're at the orchard, he's asked you to get out of the truck, says she's over there. What are you feeling?
I still think he's screwing with me. I think this is a joke.
And Bo gets out of the truck. Where does he walk?
He walks around the front of the truck into the clearing, and I take a couple steps towards him, and that's when I see part of her.
And when you say there's a clearing, are you around, are pecan trees around you? Or is it
No,
pecan
sir,
trees?
it's in the woods. I mean, a clearing in the woods. It was not in the orchard.
How far, you said you saw something where Bo went.
Yes, sir.
How far away did Bo walk away from the truck when he stopped?
It was maybe 20 feet, 25.
And what specifically, as you're walking towards where Bo is, what specifically do you see?
I just remember seeing a spot of white. It's kind of covered up.
You say covered up with what?
Leaves and limbs and other, I mean, just, covered up.
Debris from the trees,
Yes, sir.
pine straw, things like that.
Yes, sir.
Objection, leading.
That's sustained objection.
You walk towards this spot. Can you tell if it's a person at some point?
No, sir, not then. Like I said, I just seen something that didn't belong there.
When you get closer, are you able to tell whether it's a person?
You could tell it was, yeah.
Could you tell if it was a man or a woman?
No, sir, not then.
Was the person laying on their back or their stomach?
They were laying face down.
You approach, I guess, do you come to stand near Bo in that area?
No, sir, I stopped at the,
Object, leading, yet again.
Please let him answer the question.
Did you,
I stopped at the clearing. I said as soon as I stopped or I saw something, I froze where I was.
how far away were you standing?
10, 12 feet.
Does Bo do anything once you approach within 10 feet or so?
Yes, sir, he reaches down. He grabs her arm and just flips her over.
Was it a violent motion that he made?
Yes, sir.
Objection.
How did he move her? How did he turn her?
It was, like I say, he just reached down like you would open a cellar door and just, or crank a lawnmower, I guess.
Does he look at you?
Yes, sir. He looks at me and says, "I told you."
Can you see if the person is wearing clothes?
They were wearing clothes. She was wearing clothes.
At this point, can you tell if it's a man or a woman?
Yes, sir.
Could you see her face at this point?
Somewhat, yes, sir.
Were you able to identify who this was at that time?
No, sir. If he wouldn't have told me, I wouldn't have known who it was.
And you said that she's wearing clothes. Can you identify what the clothing was on the body?
It was a T-shirt, some type of jogging pants, maybe.
Do you remember if she was wearing any kind of shoes? Do you recall?
No, sir, not that I remember. I thought she was, though.
At this point, Bo said, I told you. Does Bo say or do anything else at this point?
He starts walking back to the truck. Tells me we got something to do. I was froze. I remember him telling me several times, "Come on."
Did you eventually follow him?
Yes, sir.
Where did y'all go?
We got back in the truck. He turned around, started to go back towards the entrance to the orchard.
And, excuse me, where do you go? Do you leave the orchard, or what do you do?
No, sir, there was a type of barn area. He goes over there, parks, gets out of the truck, starts putting, or breaks open the door and starts putting wood in the back of the truck.
And you said he broke open the door. Do you recall, was the door to the barn locked?
Yes, sir.
And what's in the barn?
It was wood.
And what does Bo do next?
He starts putting wood in the back of the truck.
Did you help him load the wood?
Yes, sir.
How much wood did you load into the truck?
It filled the back of the truck up.
And this was a full-size pickup truck?
Yes, sir.
What were you feeling? What were you thinking at this point?
I was just in shock. You know, it's like I was separated from myself.
So you and Bo, you load the wood into the truck. What happens next?
He turns around again and goes back to where Miss Grinstead was.
And the two of you drove over there in the truck?
Yes, sir.
Once you arrive back at where the body is, what happens next?
He gets out of the truck. He tells me to come on because, you know, I don't know. I said it was like I was watching myself. I was there, but I wasn't. He tells me to come on, get out of the truck. And that's where he goes back to where she's at, Miss Grinstead's at.
So you get out of the truck, you follow him over there?
Yes, sir.
And how was Bo's demeanor at this point when you're back at the body?
Yeah. He was almost excited. You know, he's cheerful. You know, it was. I don't know the right word.
You walk back over to the body. Does Bo do anything to the body?
He tells me to help him pick her up.
Did he touch the body or anything before?
He did.
What did he do?
He pushes up her shirt, starts following her.
Did he look at you when he did that?
It was like I wasn't there. You know, I remember telling him to stop, and I remember how he looked at me. You know, it's like I'd never seen him before.
How did he look?
I can't describe it. I don't have the words to describe it.
Did you say anything?
Other than to tell him to stop touching her.
Did he stop?
I think so.
Did he cover her back up? Did he pull her shirt back down?
No.
What happened next?
He tells me to come home. We got to move her.
And what do you do? What do the two of you do?
I grab her by her feet and help pick her up.
Did Bo help pick her up as well?
He did.
Did he pick her up by the arms?
Yes, sir.
I sustain that objection, Mr. Gibson.
What happened next?
Picked her up. We placed her on the tailgate of the truck was down. Placed her on the back of the truck.
How did she look when you came over to her?
She was beat up. She had bruises on her arms and legs. I said I wouldn't have recognized her.
At the time you helped him pick her up, could you identify who she was at that point?
No.
How was her hair?
It was over her face.
So you and Bo put her on the tailgate of the truck, and what happened next?
He tells me to get back in the truck.
Did you get back in the truck?
Yes, sir.
And then what did the two of you do next?
He drives. He drives further down into the orchard.
Do you drive? I guess what direction in the orchard are you driving in the pecan portion or the pine tree area?
It's kind of in the middle. You know, it's in between the pecan trees and the woods.
And where do you ultimately drive to? Do you come to a stop at some point?
It's eventually the orchard ends, and he kind of, does another U-turn and backs up into a clearing.
And is the clearing in the area with pine trees or with pecan trees?
It was in the pine thicket.
Had you ever been to that particular location before?
No, sir.
So Bo pulls in, does a U-turn, you said. What happens then?
It's when Bo starts to unload the wood.
Did Bo say anything to you?
He told me to get out and help him.
Did you get out of the truck?
I did.
Did you help him unload the wood?
I did.
What'd y'all do with the wood?
He started to kind of stack it, or lay it out.
Was it near the truck?
Wasn't far.
As you unload the truck, get the wood out, what happens next? What do you do?
Just want to figure out what he's fixing to burn.
What happens next? What's your reaction at this point?
I vomit. I'm dry heaving. I'm crying.
Does Bo say anything?
He starts laughing at me.
Do you say anything to Bo?
I don't think I could say anything at that point.
Once the wood's stacked up, what do y'all do next?
Bo tells me to help him put her on the wood.
And did you help him
I did.
move the body?
I did.
And once you place the body on the wood, what happens next?
I'll back out, almost out of the clearing, kind of.
You back out like you need to walk back out?
Yeah, I told Bo I can't be here. You got to take me home.
What happened next?
He just started putting wood on top of it.
And then what happened?
He lit her on fire.
What was his expression, his demeanor when that happened?
It's like he wasn't there.
At some point, do you get back in the truck, or what happens?
I think I get in the truck. I'm not sure exactly when Bo gets in the truck too.
How much time passed between the time that Bo started the fire and
Maybe a minute, 2 minutes.
does Bo eventually get back in the truck?
Yes, sir.
And what happened after that?
We leave the orchard.
When the two of you get in the truck and you leave the orchard, was the fire still burning when you left?
I didn't look back. I think so.
Was this time when you helped move the body onto the pile of wood, was that the last time that you saw Miss Grinstead's body?
It was.
At any point, either when you arrived at the orchard or when you were leaving the orchard, did you see Miss Grinstead's car anywhere?
I did not.
Where do the two of you drive after you leave the orchard?
He takes me back to the trailer.
On the way home from the orchard, does Bo say anything to you?
He tells me you can't say anything, you can't talk about this.
At any point, did Bo tell you what happened to Miss Grinstead?
No, sir.
Did you ask Bo what happened to Miss Grinstead?
No, sir.
Why didn't you ask Bo what happened?
I don't think I had to.
When you get to the trailer, what do the two of you do?
I get out of the truck. Before I'm really even out the way of the door, he starts backing out.
Did Bo leave?
Yes, sir. He spinning wheels.
When was the next time that you saw Bo?
So over a week later,
When you saw him about a week later, where did you see him at?
he came and knocked on the door to the trailer.
Between the time that Bo dropped you off at the trailer and that week span where you saw him again, did you tell anybody what happened?
No, sir, I didn't.
Why didn't you tell anybody what happened?
I didn't think anybody would have believed me.
When you and Bo were at the orchard, did either of you wear gloves?
Not that I remember.
At this point, did you have latex gloves in your house?
Yes, sir. My brother kept some for changing out the cat litter, taking the trash out.
Did you also use Bo Duke's truck to take off household trash from time to time?
No, again, I'm going to object to leave. This is a defendant in a criminal case, and he's continuing to leave. And I would just ask that he not leave.
How did you...
Okay, that's enough, please. Thank you.
Sorry, Your Honor. Did you have... How did you take out your trash at your house?
We usually put it in the back of Bo's truck. There wasn't a trash service. So we'd put it in the truck and take it to the dump.
You mentioned that about a week later, Bo came over to your house and he knocked on the door. What happened next?
He had knocked on the door and stepped back, I guess, so I'd come outside and talk to him.
And what did he say?
He asked if I was all right, if I had said anything.
And what was your response?
I said, no, I'm not okay.
Did you invite Bo to move back in or stay at your trailer?
I didn't. He asked to stay. I said he didn't have anywhere else to go.
Did you want him to stay at the trailer?
I didn't.
But you didn't tell him no, that he couldn't stay?
Judge.
Okay. Did you tell him no?
I didn't. I let him stay anyway.
At this point, did you still have a job?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever discuss Miss Grinstead at any point after this?
No, sir. Oh, yes, sir. He'd bring it up.
Bo would bring it up?
Yes, sir. He'd remind me, you can't say anything. You can't talk about this. Nobody believe you anyway.
Were you afraid of Bo?
Just,
Were you afraid of Bo? It's suggesting the answer.
Overruled attitude.
yes, sir.
Why?
I don't know what Bo's capable of doing.
Was there anything that he did other than things we've talked about previously that made you afraid?
You just didn't know what he would do. I mean, like I said, he had killed somebody. That's no reason enough to be scared of somebody.
Did you ever go out to the orchard again?
Yes.
When did you go out to the orchard again?
I had asked Bo to take me to get some groceries, and he started going that way towards the orchard.
Did he go all the way out there?
Yes, sir, he did.
And tell me about that trip. What happened?
He went out there. He took me out there to where he had initially burned Miss Grinstead and showed me the ashes.
What did the spot look like?
Just like a small campfire, you know.
Other than this trip you just described, did you ever go to the orchard again?
Yes, sir. One more time.
When was that?
Bo had a party. It was in, I guess, November.
Was that of 2005?
Yes, sir.
Why did you go to the party?
I didn't want to go. Bo convinced me that him having a party and me not being there would be weird. It would be out of the ordinary.
Do you remember any other people that were at the party?
Yes, sir. There were several people there. I remember Garland Lott being there.
Did you talk to Garland a lot at the party?
I did it. I hadn't seen Garland in a while. We were friends, you know.
Did you say anything to him about Miss Grinstead or anything that happened at the orchard?
No, sir. We were talking and just kind of catching up, and I don't know how it come up about Miss Grinstead, you know, she was missing. It's about the time Bo walked up, you know, put his arm around me and said we killed her and we burned her.
Was that while you were talking to Garland?
Objection. Judge Leading.
Or just as,
That's what.
Was that while you were talking to Gordon? Is that your overruled attitude?
Yes, sir.
do you recall if there were any other conversations after this with Bo about the disappearance of Miss Grinstead?
Yes, sir. Bo would tell me, you can't talk about it, you can't bring it up, but he was constantly doing that.
Do you know if he followed the case like in the news?
He did. He would be on the website or, you know, constantly if I went to work and come back and any update, you know, he kept an eye on it.
You said the website. Do you know what website?
I think it was Find Tara.
Did Bo have Miss Grinstead as a teacher?
He did.
Did he ever make any comments about Miss Grinstead specifically?
He did. He made suggestive comments about her.
When would that have been?
That was back in high school.
So this time period of October 22nd and 23rd, 2005, you were living with your brother. Did you continue to live with your brother after this?
For a little while. It wasn't long. We had to move because of the problems we had out there. Was getting complaints. So.
And when you moved out of the trailer, where did you move to?
A White House across from Taylor's in Pittsburgh. I don't know the street.
When approximately was that you moved into that house?
It was that year, maybe December, January.
When you were living in this house, did you have a roommate? Did anybody live with you?
It was Bo.
Was it just the two of you?
Yes, sir.
Did Bo pay any rent or utilities?
No, sir. Bo never contributed.
Did he clean the house?
No, sir.
Did you continue to pay for everything?
Yes, sir.
Did you still work at MDI at this point?
Yes, sir, I did.
What were your feelings about this arrangement?
I wasn't sure how to untangle myself from Bo.
Why didn't you go to the police at this point?
I'd say I was afraid of Bo, afraid of what he might do. I mean, I didn't think I'd be believed.
At this point, were you spending time with any friends or family?
No, sir.
Did the two of you ever have friends over to that house?
Rarely. There was one occasion where a couple of guys came over.
Who was that? Who were the?
It was Zane Deal, Cliff Benson, and not sure who the third person was.
Is there anything that stands out from that visit?
I just remember it being strange. You know, there being a kind of weird tension in the room.
Did you ever find out what the tension was?
Yeah, I asked Bo what was there. That was weird. What was that about?
No, I'm going to object at this point. It doesn't sound like we're talking about any statements against interest. He's talking about a weirdness between three friends.
This goes to the present sense impression, Your Honor, and the effect of the statement that Bo will make on the listener, Mr. Duke.
You get the last sentence.
There hasn't been sufficient foundation laid as to when Bo made this statement to him to show the present citizen impression, Judge.
If you'll orient us on that time period, then we'll take it from there. Thank you.
Did you discuss the visit of these friends at your house with Bo?
Yes, sir, I did. It had been that next year sometime, between January and the summer. I know I moved out of the house. That's June, maybe May.
And that's when the friends visited. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir. It was prior to that.
And you testified there was tension that you asked Bo about.
Yes, sir. It was. I remember they all three sat in a love seat together. You know, it was just strange when there was a couch. You know, and I was in a recliner, and there was a couch, and none of them would, you know, they all sat together.
And did you talk to Bo about this visit at some point?
I asked him, that was weird, what was that about?
When was that conversation?
Right after they had left.
And what did Bo tell you?
I'm going to object again. Present citizen impression relates to someone who is at the time observing something and the impact it has on them as they're observing an event. That is not what's going on here. This is him asking Bo about an event he observed and Bo explaining that to him allegedly. That is not what present sense impression is.
You want to be right?
Yes, Your Honor. So first of all, it goes to what what the, I guess, the nature of this conversation was. It goes to the impact it had on Mr. Duke as the listener. And it's also, excuse me, it's also non-hearsay, as the question, the reason it's being asked for the effect on Mr. Duke, what he perceived this particular statement to mean to him.
You get the last say, Ms. Hart.
They're asking about a statement that Bo Dukes made that they've now accused of committing the murder. It's absolutely being offered for the truth of the matter asserted. And again, present sense impression is when someone is observing an event and they make a comment about that particular event, the impression it had on them at that time. This is not that situation.
I'm going to overrule that objection. If you'll restate the question.
What was Bo's response to your question?
Bo said he told them that I had killed Tara.
Other than the 2 times you've described, did you ever go back to the orchard after this?
No, sir.
How long did you continue to live with Bo Dukes?
So 3 or 4 months, maybe 6.
Did you move away?
I moved back home with my parents.
Why did you move back home?
I had lost my job.
Why did you lose your job?
I couldn't pass a drug test, and that had come up, so I quit.
At this time, were you doing any drugs?
Yes, sir.
What drugs were you doing at this point?
I was drinking, taking pills, anything I could get my hand on at that point.
By this point in spring, summer 2006, how often were you, take them one at a time, how often were you drinking?
Almost every day.
How often were you doing drugs?
Almost every day.
Other than the pills, what drugs were you doing?
Pot. I said pills, you know.
What pills were you taking around this time?
I was pain medication.
When you went to live with your parents, where were they living at the time?
They were still living at Pleasure Lake.
Once you moved out of the house with Bo, when was the next time that you saw him?
Several years later.
How many years was it?
I'm not sure. He had just got out of basic training, and he come by.
He came by, excuse me, at the time that he came by, were you living with your parents?
I was living, yes, sir. I was living in a trailer with my grandmother at the time, where I was living in 2017.
Bo visited you. What was the purpose for the visit?
I'm not sure. He had some drugs. He wanted me to do some coke with him. I didn't want to, so it was a fairly short visit.
Between the time that you moved out of the house in Fitzgerald and then this next time that you're seeing Bo, had you talked to him on the phone at all?
No, sir.
Had you had any other kind of communications like social media, text messages, anything?
No, sir, not between them.
Did the two of you discuss Ms. Grinstead during this visit?
No, sir.
Did he make any kind of threats?
He implied that this place would go up like wildfire. It was kindling.
And tell me about that statement. What was the context of that?
I don't know if it was before, but Bo was the pyro. You know, he liked to set fires. I would come home from work, and he'd be watching YouTube videos of fires.
And when he said this place, did he indicate what he was talking about?
He was talking about my home.
How did your experience involving Miss Grinstead's body impact you?
I think it ruined me.
Did you have nightmares about it?
I still do.
Did you try to commit suicide at some point?
Yes, sir, I did.
Overruled that objection.
Did you try to commit suicide?
Yes, sir, on multiple occasions.
When was that?
I think the first time was not long after I left MDI, so it'd been 06, early 07.
And that was when you were back living with your family?
Yes, sir.
Was it just the one suicide attempt, or were there others?
There were multiple.
When was the next?
A couple years later, maybe a year or two later.
How did you try to kill yourself?
It was sleeping pills.
Once you were back living with your family out at Pleasure Lake, were you working?
Yes, sir, I always had a job somewhere.
Were they consistent jobs, like full-time type jobs?
Sometimes I've had a hard time keeping work because of my drug and alcohol problems.
Did you develop any health problems throughout this time period?
Yes, sir. Eventually, my kidneys, I went into full renal failure and started having liver issues as well.
What led to that?
The drinking, the drugs, taking the sleeping pills.
When was the renal failure you mentioned? What year was that?
2009, 2010. I get the dates mixed up now.
At that point, were you drinking?
Yes, sir.
How much were you drinking a day, just approximately?
Usually a fifth of liquor. I drink till I passed out.
Did you take any pills?
Yes, sir, I did.
Did you smoke any marijuana?
Yes, sir, I did, almost every day.
Did you receive treatment for the kidney failure?
Yes, sir, I was on dialysis.
How long were you on dialysis?
It's a couple years. I'm not exactly sure.
And at some point, it sounds like you were able to end the dialysis?
Yes, sir. My kidney function got to where they were working okay, that I didn't need it.
Did you continue to drink?
I do good for a little while and then fall right back into it.
Did you did you continue to smoke marijuana?
Yes, sir, almost every day.
And did you continue to take pills?
Yes, sir, almost every day.
After you had the renal failure and went through the dialysis, did you have any other suicide attempts?
I don't think so. Like I said, my memory isn't as good as it was.
At this point in your life, did you have friends in your life?
No, sir. Other than my family.
How often did you see your family?
They lived next door, so it's pretty regular.
Did you have any pets?
Yes, sir. I had 3 cats and a dog. I've had multiple strays over the years.
You spoke to Agent Sheldell about this case in February, or did you speak to Agent Sheldell about this case in February 2017?
Yes, sir.
In we'll just say the few months leading up to that meeting with Agent Sheldell, how much were you drinking at that point per day?
I was back drinking again, so it was pretty regular.
Were you still smoking marijuana at the time?
Yes, sir. Almost daily.
What about pills? Were you taking any pills?
Yes, sir. Pain medication, blood pressure, cholesterol, depression, anxiety medication.
The pills that you took, did you have a prescription for those?
Some of them, not the pain medication.
Where did you get the pain medication?
It was fairly easy to get off the street.
The pain pills in particular, how did those affect you?
They kind of lifted you up, you know, like your morning coffee, and just kind of picked you up, helped you deal with, if you was in pain, it helped you deal with it, but it was a upper.
Do you, excuse me, did Agent Shaldell and Agent Holland initially come to see you at your house?
Yes, sir.
And did you tell them anything about Ms. Grinstead at that time?
No, sir.
Did you discuss a plan to meet with them at some other point?
Yes, sir. They had asked me to come the next day and have an interview, or they wanted to talk to me about a case they were investigating.
Were you contacted by Bo Dukes after you initially spoke with Agent Shaldell and Agent Holland at your house?
I was.
How did you communicate with Mr. Dukes?
I got a Facebook message from him that he wanted to talk to me on Messenger.
And were you already, I guess, Facebook friends with Bo at that
I
point?
was not.
Did Bo Dukes send you any kind of message?
He did.
Do you recall what the excuse me? Do you recall what the message was?
He, like I say, he reached out, told me that the GBI talked to him, that he knew they wanted to talk to me and to keep his name out of it.
And that was just to make sure I have the time right, that was the same day that you spoke to Agent Shaldell and Holland at your house?
Yes, sir.
I understand you saying he wants to get the date right. It's still a leading question, so I'm going to
I'll
object.
remove that here.
Did you meet with the agents the next day?
Yes, sir.
Did you go to bed that night?
I didn't. I stayed up the night. Right.
What time did you meet with Agent Shaldell on February 22nd?
I think it was around 12:30, 1 o'clock, something like that.
Did you have a car at that time?
No, sir.
Before you went to meet with Agent Shaldell, did you take any kind of medications or drugs?
I did.
If you would, tell the jury what those medications or drugs were.
I took a morphine pill. I took a Percocet. Probably a couple Vicodin. I smoked some pot. You know, I was up all night. I was shook up.
Were those? Did you have those pills? Were they at your house?
Yes, sir.
And did you have a car at the time?
No, sir, I did not.
How did you get to the interview?
My mom and my stepdad gave me a ride.
Why did you take the pills that you took?
I knew I wasn't coming home, you know, so I just took what I had.
At this point, were you afraid of Bo Dukes?
Yes, sir.
Did you believe that he had killed someone before?
Yes, sir.
When you met with Agent Shaldell that day, did you confess to killing Miss Grinstead?
I did.
Was that true?
No, sir.
When did you decide that you were going to take the blame for Miss Grinstead's death?
Sometime before I left home.
So it was that same day that you
Yes,
gave the
sir, that
statement?
morning or afternoon.
Why did you decide that you were going to take the blame for Miss Grinstead's death?
Because I don't think Bo will ever tell the truth.
When you spoke to Agent Shaldell, did you know, or do you know today, how Miss Grinstead actually died?
I do not.
Did you tell Agent Shaldell that you broke into Miss Grinstead's home?
I did.
Was that true?
No, sir.
Did you tell Agent Shaldell that you hit Miss Grinstead in her house during an attempted burglary?
I did.
Is that true?
No, sir.
Did you tell Agent Shaldell that Miss Grinstead died from a single blow?
I did.
Is that true?
No, sir.
Did you tell Agent Shaldell that you and Bo Dukes disposed of Miss Grinstead's body?
I did.
Is that true?
Yes, sir.
At some point after you confessed to Agent Shaldell, did you change your mind about taking the blame for Miss Grinstead's death?
Yes, sir.
When did you change your mind about that?
I had a visit scheduled with my dad.
Why did you change your mind?
I couldn't lie to my father.
Did you break into Miss Grinstead's house on October 22nd or 23rd, 2005?
No, sir, I did not.
Have you ever been inside her home at any point in your life?
No, sir.
Did you ever strike Tara Grinstead?
No, sir.
Did you ever choke Tara Grinstead?
No, sir.
Did you help Bo Dukes dispose of her body?
Yes, sir.
Did you murder Tara Grinstead?
No, sir, I did not.
Did Bo Dukes tell you that he killed Miss Grinstead?
Yes, sir, he did.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gibbs.